It's Monday, 27 January. Welcome to the PDB Afternoon Bulletin. I'm Mike Baker, your eyes and ears on the world stage. All right, let's get briefed. First, the Trump administration claimed a victory over Colombia this weekend after forcing the country to backtrack on their refusal to accept deportation flights from the U.S. Then, as the White House granted Israel a ceasefire extension in Lebanon on Sunday, violence erupted between Israeli forces and protesters in southern Lebanon, resulting in at least 22 deaths and raising concerns, of course, over whether lasting stability in the region is actually possible. But first, our afternoon spotlight. Over the weekend, we saw, I suppose, what you could refer to as the first real test of President Trump's strategy of wielding aggressive tariffs as a foreign policy tool, and it ended in an early victory for the new administration. The incident began on Sunday morning when Colombian President Gustavo Petro refused to accept deportation flights from the U.S. carrying illegal migrants. 2 flights sent by the U.S. military were reportedly turned away, with Petro chastising the U.S. government for treating Colombian migrants as criminals. That's according to a report from Fox News. Well, to be fair, these early deportation efforts are directed against individuals with criminal records or convictions. So there's that. Petro issued a rather bold statement declaring, quote, "I deny the entry of American planes carrying Colombian migrants into our territory. The United States must establish a protocol for the dignified treatment of migrants before we receive them," end quote. Well, as you might imagine, President Trump did not take kindly to the rebuke. Later on Sunday, Trump issued a statement of his own, directing his administration to immediately impose emergency tariffs of 25% on all goods coming into the U.S. from Colombia, with the tariffs rising to 50% after 1 week if Colombia refused to reverse course. He also ordered a travel ban and visa revocations for all Colombian government officials, as well as their allies and supporters. Additionally, he declared visa sanctions on all party members, family members, and supporters of the Colombian government. He ominously warned, quote, "These measures are just the beginning. We will not allow the Colombian government to violate its legal obligations with regard to the acceptance and return of the criminals that they forced into the United States," end quote. Now, we should stress that these were not merely empty threats. The Trump administration moved swiftly to begin implementing the retaliatory measures, with Secretary of State Marco Rubio suspending visa issuances at the U.S. Embassy in Bogota and authorizing travel sanctions against those tied to the Colombian government. U.S. Customs and Border Protection also said they were taking decisive measures to immediately enforce the travel ban on Colombian officials. Colombian President Petro initially dug in his heels, threatening to impose tariffs of 25% on all U.S. imports, which he later said he would hike to 50%. But after several hours of diplomatic tensions, the Colombian government reversed course. By Sunday evening, the White House confirmed that Petro had agreed to all of Trump's demands, including the unrestricted acceptance of all illegal immigrants being sent from the U.S. The Colombian president even offered his presidential plane, well, that's nice, to repatriate migrants from the U.S. With their capitulation, Trump said the fully drafted tariffs and sanctions on Colombia would be immediately paused and held in reserve, but added that the visa restrictions would remain in place until the first plane load of Colombian deportees successfully arrived. The White House declared victory Sunday night, with Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt saying, quote, "Today's events make clear to the world that America is respected again. President Trump will continue to fiercely protect our nation's sovereignty, and he expects all other nations of the world to fully cooperate in accepting the deportation of their citizens illegally present in the United States," end quote. All right, coming up, an update on Israel's ceasefire with Hezbollah, as violence erupted between Israeli forces and protesters in southern Lebanon on Sunday, resulting in at least 22 deaths and raising concerns over whether lasting stability in the region is possible. I'll be right back. Welcome back to the Afternoon Bulletin. I want to provide an update on the Israel-Hezbollah ceasefire as tensions flared Sunday after Israeli forces opened fire on protesters in southern Lebanon. This development comes as Palestinians begin returning to northern Gaza following Israeli accusations of ceasefire violations by Hamas. Now, according to Lebanese health officials, the Israeli Defense Forces, the IDF, killed at least 22 protesters and injured over 120. The violence erupted in nearly 20 villages along the border as the protesters, some waving Hezbollah flags, called for Israel's withdrawal from southern Lebanon, a key condition of the ceasefire agreement that halted the Israel-Hezbollah war back in November. The IDF claimed it fired warning shots to disperse the crowds, accusing Hezbollah of inciting the unrest. An IDF spokesperson stated, quote, Hezbollah is trying to escalate tensions to distract from its declining influence in Lebanon and the region, accusing Hezbollah terrorists of sending, quote, rioters to instigate chaos. The spokesperson urged Lebanese residents to avoid Israeli troops as a safety precaution. Lebanon's president called for restraint from the protesters while reaffirming that, quote, Lebanon's sovereignty and territorial integrity are non-negotiable, and I'm following up on this issue at the highest levels to ensure your rights and dignity, end quote. Lebanon's president urged residents to trust the Lebanese army, which has been escorting civilians into border villages during the fragile ceasefire. Hours later, the White House confirmed that the deadline for Israel's withdrawal had been extended to 18 February, following an Israeli request for more time beyond the original 60-day deadline. Israel cited the incomplete deployment of the Lebanese army in southern Lebanon as justification, claiming it was necessary to prevent a Hezbollah resurgence. Lebanese officials pushed back, arguing that their forces cannot fully deploy until Israeli troops leave. The White House added that negotiations between the two governments on the extended deadline date would address the return of Lebanese prisoners captured after the 7 October 2023 Hamas terror attack on Israel. The Israel-Hezbollah ceasefire agreement, brokered by the U.S. and monitored by the UN, mandates Israel's withdrawal, the disarmament of unauthorized forces south of the Litani River, the redeployment of the Lebanese army, and the safe return of displaced civilians. All right, turning to Israel's ceasefire with Hamas. On Monday in Gaza, tens of thousands of Palestinians began returning north through the Netzarim corridor after Israel eased roadblocks late Sunday, following mediation efforts by Qatar. This follows our coverage on this morning's PDB of Israel accusing Hamas of violating the ceasefire agreement by delaying the release of two hostages, a civilian woman named Arbel Yehud and a female soldier named Agam Berger. Now, Israel stated that Yehud's status as an alive female civilian placed her in the highest priority category to be freed in this first phase of the ceasefire. While Hamas initially dismissed these facts, they later agreed to release Yehud, Berger, and another hostage by Friday. In exchange, Israel permitted displaced Palestinians to return to northern Gaza, though the IDF warned civilians against aiding Hamas terrorists. According to Israel's Channel 13, U.S. monitors have been brought in to oversee the checkpoint on the Netzarim corridor, aiming to prevent the movement of terrorists and weapons. Hamas, however, framed the civilians' return as a, quote, victory, while Israel maintained its stance on ensuring security. The developments in southern Lebanon and Gaza reveal the precarious nature of current peace efforts in the region, with ceasefire terms yet to be fully realized and tensions simmering, of course, on all fronts. The pursuit of lasting stability remains uncertain. And for that, I award myself the PDB Statement of the Obvious Award. And that, my friends, is the PDB Afternoon Bulletin for Monday, 27 January. Now, if you have any questions or comments, please reach out to me at pdb@thefirsttv.com. Not to mention, although I'm about to, if you're hankering for an ad-free PDB experience, well, we can make that happen. Just become a premium member of the President's Daily Brief by visiting pdbpremium.com. I'm Mike Baker, and I'll be back tomorrow. Until then, stay informed, stay safe, stay cool.
Hey, thanks for tuning in.
If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button and leave a comment, a really positive, nice, and kind comment. That would be appreciated. And if you're not already subscribed to our channel, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our daily updates.